can be uplifting. That human connection that we create on the broadcast every night is incredibly important.
CBS News Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley on CBS.
If it's important to our nation,
I wonder how you think about where America is at this moment.
it's on Face the Nation.
Can there be stability if Vladimir Putin remains in power?
Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan on CBS.
Who is George Santos?
George Santos, to me, is a bunch of lies.
If he had any shame at all, he wouldn't be there.
I am very comfortable in prosecuting my record versus Sherrod Brown's record. Ohio's not a left-leaning state.
I win because I focus on workers.
In a year that historically is bad for any president's party, we were able to win net +2 Democratic governors in crucial states that can make a real difference in the 2024 presidential election.
You think Donald Trump can beat Biden?
No. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, November of 22 showed us that.
Welcome to Red and Blue. I'm Robert Costa in Washington. Thanks for joining us. CBS News is learning more about embattled Congressman George Santos. A CBS Reports documentary out today found that he drew scrutiny from federal regulators for working for a company that allegedly orchestrated a Ponzi scheme. Santos was a regional director of a small investment firm for about a year before the SEC shut it down for alleged fraud. Santos is not named in the complaint, but in the documentary, one of Santos's childhood friends tells CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns how the Republican congressman tried to attract new investors. Meanwhile, senators held a hearing today on the Chinese spy balloon. The Defense Appropriations Subcommittee is demanding answers from Biden administration officials on the incident. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian joins us now. Nicole, thank you so much for being with us. The senators are talking all about the spy balloon today. You've done some reporting. Let's hear what they've had to say.
Because the American public deserves to hear from the Department of Defense, not play politics with our national security. I do not care who is in the White House. We will always do our job, and we will always provide oversight.
It defies belief that there was not a single opportunity to safely shoot down this spy balloon prior to the coast of South Carolina.
The clear message to China is we got free range in Alaska because they're going to let us cruise over that until it gets to more sensitive areas.
Nicole, always good to have you with us. A lot of criticism offered today on Capitol Hill, but what's next on this front?
Well, of course, this was an all-member briefing. You saw the hearing there with Senator Tester, but at the same time, there were briefings that were conducted both on the House and Senate for all members. And while many of them didn't want to talk about the intelligence that was shared, because, of course, these were classified briefings, many lawmakers were still left with a lot of questions. We know here in the Senate that there is another briefing scheduled for next week for senators on the issue of China. This was something that was previously scheduled prior to this balloon incident. But certainly we have seen a lot of reaction along party lines. Speaker Kevin McCarthy said that this balloon should have never been let in. And that kind of echoes a lot of concerns that Republicans have had, that the Biden administration should have taken action sooner rather than allowing this balloon to cross the continental United States. Democrats, on the other hand, many of them feel that the Biden administration took the right approach here by being more cautious, waiting till it got over water before shooting it down. And of course, there's still lots of questions about what type of technology this was, what was in the balloon. So certainly many more questions here on Capitol Hill.
Speaking of the skies, Nicole, there was a lot of scrutiny today on Southwest Airlines. What's the latest?
Yeah, that's right. Well, you had the chief operating officer of Southwest Airlines who was here on Capitol Hill and faced a lot of questions from members of the Senate Commerce Committee for that travel meltdown that we saw back in December, where the airlines ultimately ended up having to cancel nearly 17,000 flights, stranding thousands, if not millions, of passengers. And of course, who can forget all of those images of bags scattered across airports around the country. I did have a chance to catch up with Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who was at this hearing, to see what his thoughts were on today's testimony.
I'm encouraged that they're investing significant resources in improving and modernizing their systems. A lot of travelers were inconvenienced.
But was their apology sufficient?
Well, ultimately, it's going to be the customers that make that decision.
Now, there's a debate right now on Capitol Hill about how involved Congress should be going forward. While Southwest said it is taking steps to remedy this situation and prevent it from happening, Senator Cruz was very clear that he doesn't think that Congress should get involved in trying to regulate the airlines or whether or not consumers should get drink tickets, as he told me. But Senator Maria Cantwell, who ran this hearing today, said she does think that there are some potential legislative remedies when it comes to protecting consumers' rights. Bob?
Nicole Killian, thank you so much. Joining us now to discuss the latest on Congressman George Santos and that new terrific CBS News investigative documentary, Into Him, is Caitlin Huey-Burns, as well as Erica Brown. Caitlin is CBS News' political correspondent. Erica is a CBS News investigative producer. Let's begin, though, by taking a look at this documentary investigation. Let's hear.
He started these lies, and I think it just continued. And this was the only way that he knew how.
Later, as adults, Tiffany bumped into Santos at a Starbucks.
Guess who I ran into at Starbucks?
You know what? I ran into her.
She told him she'd settled a big case for a client, $2 million. She says Santos promptly invited her and her client to dinner.
It was this huge room with like one table in the middle. He asked for a $300,000 principal investment, and he essentially said the client was not allowed to know what was being invested in at all.
She didn't like the sound of it, and her client turned down Santos's investment pitch.
And we now know that that was a Ponzi scheme.
It was all fraud. Oh, I was so outraged.
Let's begin, Caitlin, with your takeaway, and then, Eric, I want to hear yours as well, from all of this reporting. We've been following Santos, but you've been digging in together as a team with the investigative unit. What's the big picture on this congressman as he faces all of this heat?
Yeah, we have spent so much time in the district talking to as many people as we can, and particularly those who knew him well. You just heard from Tiffany Bogosian, who went to middle school with Santos and said that, he was bullied as a child, and she believes that, he was making up stories then and kind of sees a pattern of behavior that she recognizes now. But what's significant about her is that she, represented this client who came into a lot of money. Santos tried to pitch that client on investing in this now Ponzi scheme. And now we have learned that the Securities and Exchange Commission is now asking questions about that investment pitch from Santos. So that is new. But what we learned from talking to people is that he really duped everyone. People that knew him well, that were cheering for him, that wanted to see him succeed. Even those people that were close to him were frauded by him.
Erica, what about you? What's your big takeaway from all of this reporting?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway is we are still asking ourselves, who is George Santos? Although we get much closer, having spoken to these people, as Caitlin mentioned, who knew him best, dating back to middle school with Tiffany Bogosian, who said that he was someone who was bullied and had some trouble fitting in school. And so he started to lie as a mechanism to try to get in with these groups. And this person that she knew in middle school is the same person that she now sees in the headlines, someone who is continuing to lie to fit in. We also spoke with Greg Morey, who was a former roommate of Congressman Santos in 2014. And Greg said that Congressman Santos, at the time, he wasn't in Congress, but that he was a very skilled liar. He was persuasive. He was manipulative, and he was someone who thrived on attention. In his words, he said that the congressman had to be the belle of the ball. And so I think one of the things that we really learned from this documentary is who the congressman was before he became a public figure, before he ran for office, beyond the headlines. We learn more about his character, and we get a little glimpse into what may have caused him to start lying.
And quickly, Caitlin, what about this new information you found about his alleged financial scheming?
That remains the biggest question, right? Erica makes a good point that we have more questions now than answers with him, and we should note that we have tried multiple times to get him to sit down with us for an interview, and he has declined. But this is where we need to follow, right? There are multiple investigations going on, federal, state, and local, and there are complaints against him with the Ethics Committee in the House. And what's interesting here is that House Republican leadership wants to just let that all play out. And what's significant, I think, is that, voters don't have a mechanism to get rid of their congressman, right? Unlike a governor or a state representative, you can recall those people. Members of Congress, you can't recall. So it really is going to depend on what these investigations yield and how leadership responds as a result of those investigations.
We're going to have to leave it there. Caitlin Huey-Burns and Erica Brown, thank you so much for your reporting and this investigation. Coming up, Ohio was a battleground in the last Senate election cycle and will likely be again in 2024. We will speak to one of the Republicans hoping to challenge incumbent Democrat Senator Sherrod Brown. We'll do that next. You're streaming Red and Blue, reporting across the political divide.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift. I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift. Stream now on the free CBS News app.
You ready?
A generation of kids opens up on CBS Reports.
I just want to be like a regular kid.
Their world, their struggles, their voices.
What if I was white?
A lot of people like to call names and make you feel ashamed for being proud of who you are.
Now streaming racism.
I feel like it's just a war zone between all different races.
Will this generation continue the problem?
The kids pushed them away and didn't want them to be there because of their race.
Or be the solution?
We just need to keep raising our voices. We're all human and we don't deserve that type of treatment just because of how we look.
Are the kids all right? Racism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When weather turns extreme, CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real, you'll have time to get prepared. Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS Mornings.
An original documentary from CBS reports tensions rising between a powerful country and a vital island.
The supply of this technology came grinding to a halt. The world would grind to a halt. Absolutely.
As Taiwan faces threats and aggression,
Taiwan is on the front line, and we understand our responsibility as a democracy. We cannot fall.
CBS News examines whether they can defend themselves.
Putin, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, there are manifestations of the battle between autocracy and democracy. And that is a fight that we're all engaged in.
Defending Taiwan, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
The news doesn't have to always be depressing.
What do you love about running?
Energy! It can be uplifting. That human connection that we create on the broadcast every night is incredibly important.
stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Robert Costa. Control of the Senate in 2024 up for grabs, and a number of candidates have already launched their bids. Democrats do face a daunting map, including probably in Ohio, where Democrat Senator Sherrod Brown is up for re-election. Ohio Republican State Senator Matt Dolan has already announced he will run for that seat. He finished third in last year's Republican primary for outgoing Senator Republican Rob Portman's seat that was ultimately won by now Republican Senator J.D. Vance. And State Senator Matt Dolan joins us now from Cincinnati. May have just had some chili for lunch, perhaps, in that great city. State Senator Dolan, thanks for being with us.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Robert.
So you've been cast by sources of mine as a traditional Republican, not necessarily a Trump Republican. How do you see yourself? How do you define yourself as you look at this race?
Well, I think I'm a conservative Republican who gets results. I mean, I've been in the state legislature. I've cut taxes. I've cut regulations, expanded school choice. You know, I've worked with stakeholders all around the state to help grow Ohio's economy. Intel, Honda have all come here. So, well, you know, we're getting the labels. I get things done. And Sherrod Brown has been in Washington for 30 years. And all the problems that we're talking about today have been the problems we've been talking about for 30 years. So how are we going to expect him to fix these problems? So I'm somebody who can go around Ohio, talk about the conservative things that we've been able to accomplish, see the positive results, and say, look, I want to get that done in Washington as well.
Senator J.D. Vance has already endorsed former President Donald Trump's 2024 presidential campaign. Smart move by Senator Vance, something you would support or something you would oppose?
We have to talk to J.D. about whether, for him. For me, I want the Republican nominee to follow my lead, and that is, let's talk about tomorrow. Let's talk about the issues that we need to fix. Inflation. Our border is wide open. We must secure it. Our standing in the world is weakening. We've got to stand up to China. President Biden spoke to the nation for over an hour and never mentioned China. He mentioned raising taxes. He doesn't even mention China, despite what happened over the weekend. So the Republican nominee better focus on those issues. That's what I'm going to focus on. And I think that's the winning message in Ohio. That's what they want. Somebody who will get things done.
Have you met with Senator Mitch McConnell and talked about your candidacy?
I had a chance to meet him for the first time just a few weeks ago, yep.
Has he been encouraging of your run?
Look, I was just out of respect going to the minority leader and talking to him. I focus on Ohio and Ohioans. So, you know, you're going to have to ask him whether he's encouraging about my race. But I am laser focused on making sure Ohioans know that I go to Washington and fight for them. I don't fight for anybody else. I fight for Ohioans.
But before you face Senator Brown, you're going to have to, of course, win the Republican nomination for Senate. So I'm just trying to understand, for our viewers who may not follow Ohio politics day to day, let's say former President Trump is the Republican nominee. Would you support that? Would you support him as the nominee if he wins the nomination?
If the Republican nominee has got to be somebody who focuses on tomorrow, all the issues we talked about, you know, taking on inflation, border security. That's what the Republican nominee is going to do. If the Republican nominee runs on yesterday, if it runs on a campaign of, and they win, look, I have to take a long, hard look as to whether or not they're actually representing what we need to get done in Washington.
Senator Vance, who you would be joining in the Senate if you win the nomination and the election, he has been wary of some of this U.S. support for Ukraine in terms of how Congress has allocated funding. Where are you on Ukraine and the level of support from the United States moving forward?
Well, first, what Senator Vance is doing is government oversight on the monies that we're spending. There's no problem with that. We always should be doing that. Where I differ with Senator Vance is I do support American resources and American weaponry helping Ukraine defend against this invasion of a sovereign nation. You know, if we don't draw the line, if we don't help Ukraine draw the line we're going to have American treasure and American blood in Poland and Belarus. I mean, we have got to stand up to Russia, not only to cease Russia's tyrannical behavior, but China is watching. We clearly know they're watching us every day, all the time with the balloon incident, but they're watching what we're doing. And if we show weakness, and I think President Biden, ultimately has come to do some of the things I agree with, but he's so slow in his ability to get it done. We need Germany to stop the spigots coming from Russia. We need to be talking to India and have them turn off the spigots from Russia. We need to become energy independent
Understood.
in Ohio. Right, so that we can be the exporter of energy.
Real quick, State Senator Dolan, should changes to Medicare and Social Security be on the table for Congress in the coming years?
Well, let's make sure we understand what we're talking about. Social Security is not an entitlement. American workers, Ohio workers, have earned that. That's their money that needs to be returned to them. So all these political games we're scaring seniors who have worked really hard to get their money should end, period. Social Security for generations. My oldest just started working. We need to make sure, as you said, changes for him so that he understands what's waiting for him. But it's not an entitlement. People earn that money, and there never should be a talk about taking that money away. And when you do that, you're just playing political games. Medicaid, Medicare, efficiency. Let the states work on them, run it. I know in Ohio that when we have freedom to run Medicaid the way we want to, we give top services and we do it more effectively and with less money. We've got to make sure that we are investigating these areas, have hearings, talk about it, see where there's waste, but understand that you can still perform your duties and look into whether or not we are spending in the right places or we're spending the right amount.
State Senator Matt Dolan, I hope you stay in touch with us as you continue your campaign. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Sure. Thanks, Robert.
And lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are now calling for immigration policy changes. Our CBS News colleague Catherine Herridge spoke with Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst about the actions she would like to see from the Biden administration.
Is it time for a cabinet-level position to tackle fentanyl?
Absolutely, it is. And we would have expected this much earlier in this administration. The vice president was assigned to be the border czar, but we really do need someone that wants to do this in the cabinet and focus entirely upon our national security at our borders. That means focusing on the fentanyl crisis. That means making sure that we're not trafficking weapons into Mexico to the cartels and making sure that human smuggling comes to an end. All of these things, we need someone dedicated. That should be their sole purpose in serving on this president's cabinet. We had that in the Trump administration. That ended when President Joe Biden came into the White House.
You can watch more of Catherine Herridge's interview with Senator Joni Ernst tomorrow right here on CBS News at 7 p.m. Eastern. And with the 2024 Republican presidential field, well, it's beginning to take shape. We'll take a closer look at how many governors might be jumping into that contest after the break. You're streaming Red and Blue.
An original CBS Reports documentary.
Yoga and wellness has become a place of anti-science.
Online clickbait.
The algorithms feed you content based upon your own fantasy.
Potentially at my peril.
There's no question about it.
Spreading digital disinformation.
Their entire yoga studio and spiritual community got so embedded in all of the QAnon stuff that it became this sick place.
Why pro-health people are fertile ground for anti-science messages.
We can just go into the whole mask thing. A lot of us just believe that's symbolism for silencing people.
People are locked in this mindset. They've been taught to accept what the medical doctors say.
No longer are you going to be willing to take any medical advice.
It's a big problem that we urgently need to address.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. An an original CBS Reports documentary.
We need to put an end to this territorial status.
Will statehood create a better Puerto Rico?
So that we have the same quality of life that you see in the States.
What do you worry about?
Me living here in the future.
They're giving incentives to non-Puerto Ricans to come to Puerto Rico
and extract our natural resources and take over our land.
Vacation in Puerto Rico, and in exchange for that, you don't pay taxes.
Why would I allow somebody who abused me for 123 years to then consume me?
An original CBS Reports documentary, streaming now. People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
After decades in the public eye and public service, this mother-daughter duo is now talking about gutsy women.
What's the gutsiest thing you've ever done?
We go person to person with Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Robert Costa. Plenty of speculation now being made about who's running and might run for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley now expected to announce her presidential candidacy next week. But there are other potential Republican candidates who are current or former governors. Joining us now is CBS News political director Finn Gomez and political reporter Aaron Navarro. Great to have you both here. Finn, we'll begin with you. Where does the 2024 race stand? Trump's in, Haley's about to get in. What's your take?
There's others that are circling around the pool to jump in. All right, all eyes are on Ron DeSantis, obviously, as he eyes his potential entry into this race. And you're talking about governors. We're watching Glenn Youngkin. We're watching Kristen Nunu, of course, from New Hampshire. Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey. There's Brian Kemp from Georgia just put out that PAC video today. A lot of interest, a lot of activity. Next week, it seems to be the start of a new phase of this race.
A lot of names. Aaron, where are they going?
Well, a lot of these folks are going to the early presidential primary states, Iowa, New Hampshire. That's kind of it to start. But I would note, too, that Nikki Haley is going to be expected to launch her 24 campaign the same day that Mike Pence is there. The next day, current South Carolina Senator Tim Scott will be in Charleston doing his own events. So they're really showing the calendar early and showing that they are taking the steps towards the 2024 run.
What does Haley, Aaron, where does she fit in this Republican race?
For Nikki Haley, supporters of her and her team talks about her experience working both in the domestic sphere as South Carolina's governor, as well as her experience as the United States ambassador to the United Nations. They say the combo of that is something that a lot of the field maybe does not have, and they also point to her identity and who she is. She is the first Indian American governor in the state. She could be, she's running to become the first woman president. So they say that Nikki Haley is in that tier 1 of candidates when you look on her paper, on resume, in terms of the 2024 field.
And Aaron, a quick follow-up. What about the governors today in Washington? What have you learned?
Well, it was interesting. I was at the DGA presser today, and it was interesting. A reporter for Politico asked if they think that Vice President Harris, if Biden decides not to run in 2024, if Harris should be primaried. And New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, who is the DGA chair, really took a step back and said, we're not touching that question. They really believe that President Biden is going to run with Kamala Harris in 2024, even though a good amount of them that were at that presser, such as Governor Wes Moore, Josh Shapiro, some other folks that will be in town like Gretchen Whitmer, could be on that Democratic bench and run in 2024 in the situation that Biden decides not to run for re-election.
So the Democrats, Finn, they don't want to entertain the what-if questions, but the Trump campaign, you stay close to sources over on that side as well. What are the what-if scenario for them? What if many Republicans start to get in this race? How will they handle it?
It bodes well for them, frankly. I mean, this could be, in terms of strategy, it could be reminiscent of the 2016 cycle when we saw a fractured field. And Trump, with his 20-30%, can go right through that primary, through the primary early state voting contest. That's what they're hoping for. That's something that will benefit them, they say.
But a lot's changed in the past near decade since Trump started coming back on the political scene around 2013, 2014.
Absolutely.
Do they really have the expectation they can win the nomination this time?
It is a completely different cycle, and there wasn't, Ron DeSantis. He was not running in 2016. There's other contenders and hopefuls who are running or about to run or considering a run who make this race different. It's a different scenario. He's been twice impeached. All these things have happened since then. Of course, January 6th, 2021. This is a different race. You get that vibe, you get that feel, and again, next week it's a new chapter.
Finn Gomez, always making the calls. Aaron Navarro on the ground talking to the governors today. Thank you very much for your reporting. And with just 3 days until the Super Bowl, another tradition has taken place, the Super Bowl wager between the mayors from each respective city. Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas tweeted that he's putting up some Kansas City barbecue, beer, and even coffee should his Chiefs win on Sunday. And Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney responded with his end of the bet, tweeting he is putting up a large pizza and beer from the city of brotherly love that the Eagles will win the Super Bowl. What about a cheesesteak? We don't know about that. We'll continue to dig here at CBS News. That does it for today. You can stream Red and Blue Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And a reminder, if you want to watch previous episodes of the program, watch them anytime on our website. Just go to cbsnews.com/red and blue.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming